this project, so it's the Community Recreational Capital Grant Program. It's to assist in the development of small-scale indoor and outdoor capital recreation projects of less than $20,000. And so this too will help rinks with things like furnaces or roofs, some small scale kinds of renovation and repairs. And the really good thing about this project, about this program, and I hope people are listening to this as well, is there's no deadline for applications. Applications for this program can really be put in at any time. And so this is another example, I think, of a program that would work for rinks. I'm not sure about the planning assistance program. We also have a program in the department, I should mention, which I think might help groups in terms of if they needed professional assistance in planning or designing and researching a proposed or an existing sports and recreational facility that they wanted to some capital investment in. There's a planning assistance program, and it generally funds up to 50% of the total cost to a maximum of $5,000 for some planning services to get some professional assistance. And you know, this, I think, particularly for small voluntary organizations, might be a very useful program to know about. Of course, we had the Be Fit program, which is a sizable, to say the least, program of $68 million intended to help in the construction of new capital recreational facilities, or to really upgrade significant projects around the province. And all of the money for the Be Fit program has been allocated, Mr. Chair, and we have been able to fund 38 projects out of that, 36 of which have been announced, and 2 more will be, the decisions have been taken, but we will be announcing those soon.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you. Thank you for the information, and I'm sure people paid attention to the deadline. My question to you would be, how many applications were received prior to your deadline of first Monday in February?
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and we'll have that information for the honourable members shortly. I'm sure we're very busy in the department reviewing the applications for that program. We always have a greater demand for our programs, I think it is fair to say, than we have revenue available to support programs. So I have to say that I'm very impressed with how the staff approach the assessment of programs in the department. They have a very, very detailed appreciation of what the infrastructure is around the province, what we have, what communities have, what is needed, and so they're very, I think, very fair in the way they approach funding for these programs, in terms of looking at what communities already have, looking at where there are you know, deficiencies in recreational infrastructure, looking at the demands of the program on a program, and attempting to be sure that there is fairness in how money is allocated, you know, spreading it around in an equitable way and trying to identify recreational gaps that need to be addressed. So I'm advised that we've had 107 prospective applicants.
Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, and thank you. I think it came from on high. I saw you looking up, so that's fine. My question will be a follow-up to that, and that is, I'm pleased to hear that staff at the department have a good idea of the facilities around the province and the needs around the province, and that does play into the decision-making as to what grants will be approved. My question is this, and I guess it's a process question from within staff, but if there's a facility that's been identified as in needing some capital dollars for renovation upgrade, and if that particular facility does not submit an application for funding, is there any dialogue between staff and the community or that particular facility to encourage them, to help them with the application program? Is there anything to help some? Because I know I have, when we had some assistance to fire departments, volunteer fire departments, we had some small departments that really didn't have the staff and the expertise to put together an application. And they did well to get firemen, enough volunteers to go out and fight a fire. And so they needed help in putting that together, and without some help, they would not have put in an application. They would not have been able to benefit from that program. So I guess my question is, if we have communities, if we have facilities that just don't have the capacity on their board or as volunteers, but knowing that the department knows the needs, is there some dialogue, some support, some assistance, not dollar assistance, but planning and application assistance?
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Indeed, Mr. Chair, the staff in the regional offices are very proactive, and they're very connected to the sports and recreation activities in the communities that they have underneath their jurisdiction for responsibility, and they work very closely with groups, and they will assist a group in getting an application ready. They meet with people in their homes. They attempt to minimize the layers of bureaucracy and the difficulty in filling out applications and what have you. And my perception certainly is that it's not an onerous process, but one that staff are very happy to assist groups in. And since I've been minister, I have had a fair number of groups approach me, and the regional staff in the offices they're just excellent, in terms of taking the information and really working with people. And I think that's why we have such good infrastructure and good recreational facilities around the province. In addition to that, we have a person in our department whose name is Dave Malloy, and he is an architect, who specializes in recreational facilities, and he also meets with groups and with the regional representatives, and has many years of experience working with organizations, groups and organizations that are attempting to develop recreational facilities, and he's a wealth of knowledge and information, and very helpful for organizations. And I would encourage any of the members, you know, if you have groups in your constituency, don't hesitate to get them in contact with the regional reps of HPP. And if you yourselves as members haven't had an opportunity to go to make an appointment and go and meet with the regional reps, I would encourage that you do it so that you know them, and they're very accommodating in terms of trying to do the kinds of community development type work that will give us good recreational infrastructure around the province.
Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm pleased to hear that, because I do know that small groups struggle sometimes to fulfill the requirements of an application process, and yet their group is in need of assistance. And I have had a chance to work with the representative in the Fundy region, Jim Campbell, and you know, I can speak from personal experience that what you've described here, I think, would aptly describe Jim and his willingness to do whatever is in the best interest of the community, and to try to help people put together an application that is going to be given some consideration. I want to go to one of the other sources of funding, the one you said had no deadline for application. So my question is, can you give me the amount of funding in that particular budget line?
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And this particular program is called the Community Recreation Capital Grant Program. It has, in this year's budget, $300,000 in the program, and applicants are eligible for up to a third of the total capital cost of a project that they submit, up to a maximum of $5,000. And they're only eligible for the program once in every 4-year period. Again, capital projects include furnaces and roofs, something that's small scale, and there is no deadline. It's year round. So they help a lot with small scale indoor and outdoor capital recreation projects. I think about the projects like outdoor rinks, for example, that are being developed on tennis pads that exist. This is an ideal program for a neighborhood rink. If you already have a basic infrastructure there, which is the concrete surface of a tennis court, as I understand, you need to have, you need to have sort of boards that you put around, and they put down some kind of a plastic over the surface that they're then able to flood, and they need to have a water source somewhere nearby. And sometimes that might require a special installation of some kind. And I know that the two outdoor pads in the community that I represent, they had to work with the municipality to look at a water installation of some kind so that they could make those rinks possible. But they were both built for fairly small amounts of money, like under $20,000. Certainly the first one, the North End outdoor rink off of Roby Street up in the North End, or off of Agricola, I guess, and Roby. And there's at least one other small project that I'm aware of has been able to get access to this capital grant, small capital grant. So it takes some of the burden off volunteers from having to do fundraising off a project, if they know that they've got some little chunk of the project's cost that's covered, it certainly means that there's one less ham and bean supper or something like that that they have to organize, and that sure can make a big difference. So there is $300,000 in that program. It's year-round. There is no deadline, and I'm sure, again, it's a program that the regional reps will work with local community groups when they approach them for what kinds of programs can we apply for. They'll help them with the application process, which is pretty straightforward.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess you've been pretty clear in the different programs and the criteria that is used and the process for application. And I guess, again, this might be a process question, but are community groups eligible to make application for more than one grant at the same time?
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
So I'm being advised that no, they're not eligible for more than one program at the same time, and I can get you some more information on the rationale for that if you wish.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you. I would appreciate that, and the reason I would is because the programs target different needs. And if there's more than one need, I guess the question that the association will have is, which one can I make application for? And sometimes we know you might cast the net and hope you catch one of them. So perhaps I can reword my question. Are they eligible to make application, but they're only eligible to receive funding from one?
The Honourable Minister for Health Promotion and Protection.
The answer to that question is yes. I think this is why working with the regional reps is so important, because they have a good understanding of the different programs, and they also would have, I think, a pretty good understanding of where a group might be best able to succeed in terms of a program application. And so they would help that group get a focus and steer their focus rather than, you know, a scattergun approach, which may not result in a good quality application that would be successful. So this way, they can focus, get the assistance of the regional staff people, and have a much greater possibility of succeeding in the process.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have one more question that I will ask to share my time with the member from Victoria the Lakes. My question would be this. Do all applicants work with the regional representative prior to submitting, or is it just they may not? I guess to get back to your question about what's the best program for them to make application to? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
So just to go back and be really clear about the former questions that we were answering, an application to more than one program for the same project is not, you know, it's not advisable. It's not something that we would do. So if, let's say a group needed a furnace and they applied to the Recreation Facilities Development Program for, that program to help them with the furnace, and then the small capital grants project for help to deal with the furnace. HPP wouldn't entertain providing money for a furnace from 2 different programs that's the same furnace. However, if a group needed a furnace, but they also needed, they needed a roof, they could apply to 2 separate, the same group could have 2 applications, but to 2 different programs for the 2 different capital projects. So that is possible. I believe that is the correct answer. I don't know. I think so. I'll find out later if that's the case or not. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think most groups do work with the regional reps. They've become very well known in their communities. They generally, as I understand it, are people who come out of the recreational field. So they know the local communities and they know the players, and but there's no requirement that you have to work with the regional reps, and you have to have your application vetted or assisted. Any group can apply. I think our programs are listed on our website. The application forms are probably there to be downloaded and all of that kind of thing. So I don't think an application that wasn't worked on would be just tossed aside and not assessed. But I think there is a great advantage to working with the regional offices and the regional reps, and the benefit of their not just their expertise, but the fact that they work so closely with the department means that I think applications come in and they're, nothing has been overlooked. And that's very important when you're doing applications of this sort.
Thank you. The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and it gives me pleasure to stand up and ask the minister a few questions. I got to say she has great fortitude. I think she's, by the end of this evening's session, it'll be over 25 hours that she's been here. I think so. Before I ask my question, Mr. Chair, I do have to give kudos to the department for some of the funding that was made available in my constituency, and most recently would be the expansion of the soccer field at Rankin School of the Narrows in Iona. That field was built and it wasn't up to regulation size, and the community put a valiant effort forward and were able to convince the funders that the field could be expanded, and I want to thank the department for that. I'd like to talk, though, about some issues that exist in the North of Smoky area, and facilities, or lack thereof, I guess, would be a better thing to speak about. And there are 2 in particular that I'd like to bring forward to the minister this evening. First would be the Northern Victoria Community Centre, which is situated in Cape North. The building is over 30 years old. It was originally built during the Canada Games, and it was never finished, to be quite honest about it. And I know that over the years, the group in the Cape North, Bay St. Lawrence, actually it serves from Ingonish to Meat Cove. And they've been trying to get the building upgraded. The ice surface is not regulation size, and there are a lot of other activities that take place in the facility. But just on the rink surface itself, the closest rink for the people in that area would be in Shedicamp, and that's about 80 kilometers drive, and you have to go over 2 mountain ranges to get to it. So I guess the chances of having organized hockey as such are next to nil in the North Smoky area. As a matter of fact, I believe last year they have a small minor hockey program, and there were 42 children enrolled in it, but only 6 actually played organized hockey, and that was only because their parents would drive them to Shedicamp. And there's also a lot of dangers that are there when you're driving to Shed Camp, when you're going over the ranges. The weather is changeable all the time in that North of Smoky area. You have moose on the roads. It's beautiful, North Mountain. Yes, it is, Mr. Chair, but it does present its hazards as well. And I think one of the main reasons that the group is wanting to upgrade the facility, even beyond having the ice surface made larger and an ice plant put in, is the fact that there are not a lot of recreational facilities in that North Smoky area. And I think the Department of Justice has recognized that with the Lighthouse program that provides funding to the Bay St. Lawrence Community Centre. And we all know that idle kids sometimes aren't good kids, and it opens the opportunity for alcohol and drug abuse and everything else. And I think this is what the community is actually looking at. The venue that they're looking at and the expansion is in the vicinity of $440,000, I believe, to bring the facility to where they want it. I know that the municipality of the County of Victoria has committed $50,000 to the project with the proviso that the other funding partners will be in place. The group themselves, I think, are willing to put in approximately $45,000 plus any donated labor and materials that might be required. So I guess my question to the minister would be whether or not she would look favorably on a request from those people who really need a venue in the North Smoky area.
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know that this particular organization does have an application in under the recreational facilities program, and that they have met with staff as well. It sounds like it is, you know, a really important facility for that community. 80 kilometers is a long way to have to drive. And I think, did I possibly see a television program about some kind of figure skating or ice skating program up in that part of the, in Cape Breton? I know that I saw something one evening. It was lovely. I mean, it was really very lovely. Was it an outdoor skating rink? It was just amazing. This gentleman who's been doing this work. But all of these small community initiatives, they have amazing people involved in them who are pretty passionate about giving kids some really healthy opportunities in communities. And the honourable member is absolutely correct that, you know, it's so much more preferable to have children involved in, you know, skating in a local community center rink than sitting in front of a computer playing video games or these kinds of things, or just hanging or whatever it is, you know, that that isn't all that productive. You know, in this year, our department, HPP, will be doing a youth and childhood obesity strategy. And this strategy, I think, will have to look at a variety of things, and obviously recreation and physical activity needs to be a piece of that. And I'm sure that we will be looking at the infrastructure around the province that kids have access to, and what would be required to make sure that those pieces of recreational infrastructure are used to the greatest capacity. And so I like to think that we look at all applications that come to us favorably, and I know that we will look fairly at all applications, and I'm sure the staff in the department will find the information that the member has presented here today a useful piece of information when they come to do their review of this application.
The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, Minister. I guess my reason for bringing it forward is the youth, not only the youth, seniors as well in the area are really at a disadvantage because of their location and the lack of facilities. The North Victoria Community Centre is also not just a skating rink. It's a multi-purpose venue, and it's used at different times during the summer months as well. I guess one of the problems that exists is once September or October comes, they can't use it because the building is too cold for them to have something, but they can play hockey. If they sweat enough, they'll be warm enough. I'd like to move now to another project that has been submitted to your department as well, and that's from the Neils Harbour New Haven Development Association. And they're looking at the possibility of putting an outdoor rink facility next to the fire station, the Neils Harbour New Haven Fire Department. Fire Department has willingly donated the land, and what they're looking at was putting a skating rink there with a walking track around, and the plan would be that in the summertime when the rink wouldn't be used would be a basketball court, and it would also provide an outdoor multi-purpose center is basically what it would be. So much smaller scale, we're talking in the vicinity of about $165,000 in total for that project, and again, Victoria County, the municipality of the County of Victoria has very graciously been willing to pay 1/3 of the cost. And I know in both cases, both groups, the Neils Harbour New Haven people and the people for the Northern Victoria Community Centre, are also in discussions with ECBC for a possible 1/3 of the funding. So I don't know how aware the minister is of the project in Neils Harbour, but I'd like to get some comments on that facility if I could as well, please.
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as much as I like hockey rinks, and I've spent a fair amount of time in hockey rinks as a younger person in the Antigonish area, the rivalry between the Straight Pirates and the Antigonish Bulldogs was was really a growing concern at that time. Mr. Chair, I really have a soft spot, I have to admit, for outdoor rinks. I think they're the best. I just think they're the best thing going. And as I indicated, there is one in my constituency. It reminds me of pond skating when I was a kid, and you know, we did a lot of skating outdoors, and you know, you turn blue and you still wouldn't go home, and it just was a wonderful, wonderful way to enjoy Canadian winters, which we all, I think, recognize a lot harsher. I won't say how many years ago, but you know, a certain number of years ago than they are today. So it's really quite lovely, I think, when you see groups and organizations looking and planning outdoor rinks. Not that I have anything against the other kind of rinks, but they're really, I think, they make me a little nostalgic. This particular group also has an application in front of us, and has been working with the local regional rep. And again, I would say that you know, all applications that come before us are looked at very fairly and will be assessed on its merit. And we do take into consideration community partners. We do take into consideration the needs of the community and the proximity of the community to other recreational facilities and the difficulties, let's say, that people might have in gaining access to recreational opportunities when we look at where are the places we need to be investing. The member, Mr. Chair, brings up another really important, I think, issue, one we haven't discussed here at any extent, and that is the role of the federal government with respect to recreation and recreational infrastructure in our country. And as a new minister, back in the summer, I had an opportunity to go to the meeting of ministers from all of the provinces, territories, along with the federal government, which was held in Charlottetown, just in front of the Canada Games, the Summer Games. And one of the discussions that the provincial ministers had one morning at breakfast with the federal minister was the importance of the federal government having a recreational program for infrastructure, for recreational infrastructure. And we tried to impress on the federal minister, who is Gary Lund, that we really would like the federal government to play some role in terms of being a partner, that recreational infrastructure all across the country is not what it should be. And if we are going to tackle issues like childhood obesity, then we really need to have a national effort in this regard. And so at that point, we didn't, I don't think we got that far, to be honest, with the federal minister. However, I think that our resolve as a group is that we will raise this again with the federal government. My understanding is that a lot of the rinks, you know, if you look around the province of Nova Scotia, a lot of our rink infrastructure actually was built around Canada's centennial year back in 67, 66, 67, 65, leading up to the centennial. And I think that, you know, that infrastructure is quite old now, and but clearly the occasion of having a centennial, having the federal government come to the table with some dollars, made a significant difference in allowing us to build some of our infrastructure. And I think we all recognize the importance of recreational infrastructure. The difficulty, of course, is that as a small province with a limited financial capability, particularly right now, it's hard to really invest as much as we probably would like, or as much as is required to deal with the shortfall. And there are a lot of pressures, of course, in other areas of expenditure, namely healthcare capital construction, which I think the honourable member from Clayton Park reminded me is approximately a $2 billion deficit right now in terms of what our needs are for healthcare capital construction around the province, based on what the DHAs themselves kind of estimate their needs are. So when you think about these pressures, it's very difficult. But I I make no apology for saying that if I had a choice, I'd prefer to be able to invest in keeping people well than having to treat people after they become ill. And the more we can do, I think, to try to have good quality, accessible, barrier-free, affordable recreational opportunities for people, the better our population will be in terms of our health status. And we have such a high rate of chronic disease in Nova Scotia. We really need to do more to turn that around. And certainly having at a local community level recreational opportunities like outdoor rinks and places where kids can play ball hockey and stuff like that safely and securely is very important.
Thank you. The honourable member from Victoria Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When the minister was speaking about the Stray Pirates and the Antigonish Bulldogs, I guess I went back in time. It made me think of the Sydney Millionaires and the Glace Bay Miners and the Northside Vics. And I'm sure the honourable member from Cape Breton Centre can remember those teams as well. I agree, Minister, that we do need facilities that will ensure the health and well-being of our communities. And I guess that is the main goal, especially of those in the Neils Harbour, New Haven area. When you look at it, the distances they have to travel, the time to get there to other facilities, it's discouraging for people. And I think, by looking at the whole picture, people will benefit from it. I know they have letters of support in the package that I was given from the doctors in the area, from the health centre, and seniors groups. And I guess that's the big thing. The seniors would finally have an access to go on a walking track. Rather, that's within a kilometre of their home, can we say, rather than have to walk on the side of the road where maybe the shoulders are good, maybe they're not. We'll talk to the Minister of Transportation about that later on. But I guess that's the whole thing, is to provide that access for people. The Minister did mention about an outdoor rink, and I think she might have been referring to the rink that's in Ingonish Beach, which is an outdoor facility, and I believe they might even have an application into your department as well. That is a rink that is noted. As a matter of fact, the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles will hold a practice there in support of the community, and it's a great uplift for the community to see it. But again, when you look at the geography, I guess, of the area, you have Ingonish, you have Neils Harbour, then you have Cape North and Bay St. Lawrence area. Population is small, but the distance is large, and the weather conditions can change in a matter of minutes. I did mention about the moose being on the road and everything else. So I guess what I would do at this point, Mr. Chair, is ask the Minister if she would consider these 2 or even 3 projects in her further deliberations.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, to the member, of course, we will consider these applications. We will consider all of the applications we get, but we'll certainly consider these applications. The points that the honourable member has made here are noted, and will be noted as as we do the review of the applications. And as I said, I am very favorably impressed with how the staff approach the evaluation of projects, and they're wanting to ensure fairness and that people do have access to good recreational facilities within a a reasonable distance of where they live, so that it truly is accessible to them, and that location doesn't become a barrier to having recreational opportunities. We have a stellar group of staff in the regional offices. They work closely with the communities, and we have people in the department as well who work close with the regional offices. And I think that our recreational groups in our province are one of the true assets that this province has. And we want to, support people to the extent that we can with the work they do. They do a tremendous amount of work. It's all voluntary. It's all, because they are so highly motivated and committed to sports and recreation and community, really. It's a strength of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. The honourable member's time has expired on this round. The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and pleased to rise to my place tonight and have the opportunity to ask the Minister of Health Promotion and Protection and her staff to the proceedings this evening. One of your staff I'm very familiar with, of course, and with his time in the Valley, but certainly welcome you as well. And also the minister, the minister is closing in on a significant number, 26 miles in a marathon, and having run 9 marathons, Minister, I'm very, very familiar that it is a challenging ordeal. So you could go on the record as the minister that was in estimates the longest and having talked for a marathon length. But anyway, here we go. First of all, I was not available for the minister's introduction, but having a quick look today, I see that it's pretty comprehensive in the areas that were touched upon. One of the things that when a new government does come into place, you hear lots of rumor and wonderment, perhaps about smaller and more recently created departments. And I know the minister and the department see this as an integral part of health policy and development in Nova Scotia. But in terms of the actual structure and future existence of the department, is there any plans at least for a review? Or are you and your government pleased with the direction that health promotion and protection is going?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think it is fair to say that there are quite a few things that we have under review in government. And certainly the whole issue of the future of health and wellness in the province is something that we are looking at. We are looking at what the priorities need to be. We certainly have to tackle the chronic disease problem in the province of Nova Scotia. And this is a situation that results in a huge cost to our illness-based healthcare system. And the key to tackling this, on one hand, is in fact strengthening the approaches we take around health promotion. And so much of what this department does is collaborates with other departments in government. Take the Department of Education, for example, and the work that this department has done with respect to nutrition policy in the schools. Tremendous, tremendous work. But in many respects, it's only a beginning. There are many other areas that we need to advance that nutrition policy. Excuse me. I think about the child care centers. I think about our other healthcare facilities, for example, be that long-term care, be it our hospital facilities or what have you. So there are many, there's much work to be done. And and I myself have not ruled out, I haven't ruled out any changes, let's say. But at the same time, I tend to be personally much more action-oriented rather than spending a lot of time trying to plan the perfect plan and the perfect organizational structure. An awful lot of your energy can go into reorganization and organizational structure, and at the end of the day, very little happens in terms of moving the goalposts around the big issues that you want an organizational structure to be able to address. So I don't know, that's probably not a very clear answer. It's kind of an on the one hand answer and on the other hand answer. But what I can say is that health promotion and protection as a department plays an extremely important role and will continue to play a really important role. And we have mapped out some of the initiatives that we have underway. The department is, it has a very solid track record with respect to the tobacco control strategy, and a new tobacco, sort of a relaunched, the next phase of tobacco control is coming, and it is something that is being worked on, and we're very close to being able to launch additional work with, new focus and new purpose. The department has an injury prevention strategy, and it's working in a variety of areas that are fundamentally important, that have a piece of that work, things such as reducing falls for seniors, working with ski hill operators around the use of helmets, working with skateboard folks around the use of helmets. This is very important work when you think about the incidence of head injury and other injuries that are entirely preventable and will take a great burden off our community, our healthcare system, off families, who end up having to become the caregivers and the caretakers of people who have experienced maybe injuries that will then follow them for the rest of their lives. In addition to that, we've tasked the department, our government has tasked the department with developing a strategy around childhood obesity, which is reaching epidemic proportions in North America. And this is an initiative, I think, that we will see great emphasis on in the coming years. And so the important role that HPP can play in terms of leveraging their ability to collaborate. And it's a small department, but it has an extraordinary capacity to link with and work with a whole variety of other organizations in our province. And the work of this department has been really quite extraordinary. And there is, I think, there is a strong association in many respects between the Department of Health and the Department of Health Promotion and Protection. I saw that firsthand during H1N1. The vast majority of the effort around certainly the public health hazard around H1N1 and the need to protect people through the vaccine program, that was all handled in this small department under the leadership of Dr. Strang and his team. And while the acute care system in the Department of Health was really busy planning for the impact of a pandemic on the healthcare system and how to keep an emergency room going and how to keep hospital personnel on the job and how to make sure that the ICUs were there if we had great numbers of people being hospitalized. Really, HPP played a very big role working with the Department of Health in planning for that, in looking at vaccination, the vaccine program for the healthcare workers in the acute care system, looking at the assessment clinics to be able to help divert people. So there is the idea, I guess, that you have this large divide and this big dichotomy with health over here and health promotion and protection over there, I think is exaggerated myself as minister. I see them as much more collaborative, much more integrated than perhaps is recognized. They don't work in lockstep on everything because there is a division of roles and responsibilities. But there is also quite a significant overlap between areas of responsibility, and there has to be. And so whether the arrangement we have now is the optimum arrangement is not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. I spend more time thinking about what are those big health and wellness issues that are the issues of our time that confront us. And in the time that I have as minister, with this extraordinary opportunity, I think, to have both portfolios at the same time, what is it that I might be able to do that could make a real difference in the health outcomes of people? And so I tend to think in those terms. And I don't know, I said the other day in debates when we first started on HPP's budget that the rumor that HPP was, its death was imminent, was greatly exaggerated. And if I ever found the person who started the rumor, I would certainly speak to them quite sternly about the rumor, because it's not an accurate rumor. It is precisely that, a rumor.
Thank you. The member from Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm definitely going to have to change my strategy here because I just got a 13-minute answer and I'm looking at getting about 4 or 5 questions in only. But no, not really. I appreciated the background behind how the minister actually looks at this department. And while there may be some change, I didn't pick up so much on the rumor mill, but I know new governments look at, and we're at a time of really looking at how we spend all taxpayer dollars in our province. But I do appreciate the connection that the minister makes with the disease side and the acute care health dollars that we spend here in the province, 3.6 million, and the small budget of health promotion and protection, but a very, very vital one. We were at the first annual Pharmacy Association MLA get-together recently, and to hear somebody like Dr. Giacomo Antonio and how he sees health prevention in his work, and also in the role of the pharmacists of Nova Scotia, who we know have a tremendous background around what are some of the elements of wellness. That being said, Minister, we do have the highest rate of cancer in Canada in our province. We have 4 or 5 counties in Western Nova Scotia that have the highest incidence of stroke and cardiovascular disease. I'm wondering if you're actually using HPP to perhaps even target some areas that do have chronic disease and diseases like cancer, stroke, and the like, because we know that based on some jurisdictions, and I'm thinking in particular of Finland, where there was an area that had the highest rate of heart attack and death from heart attack of any place in Europe, and they actually did a comprehensive plan to change those statistics. And of course, with education of whole populations, the end result was a dramatic reversal. And I like the minister's thinking that all health professionals have a role to play, but how about in terms of even targeting some of our worst statistical areas?
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister. Thank
you very much, Mr. Chair. I don't know if the member had a chance to look at my opening remarks when I talked about the Valley School project, which I think is an excellent project, partnership between the municipality and the school board and the department at a minimal cost, really, that is providing after-school activity for young people, particularly young people who might not otherwise have an opportunity to participate in recreation. One of the things that I do, Mr. Chair, as a new minister, is go around the province and meet with the various district health authorities, and I make it a point to also go to public health and meet with public health nurses and our HPP staff as well. And I want to tell the honourable member that the out in the district health authorities, HPP staff are working very hard looking at the demographics and the data with respect to chronic disease in the different DHAs, and they are developing some excellent health promotion programs and delivering those programs and evaluating the impact of those programs. And this is precisely, I think, what the honourable member is talking about. And not so long ago, I was in the GASHA, Guysborough, Antigonish Strait District Health Authority, and I met with one of our staff there who has, she had developed this chronic disease program in conjunction with, I believe, the nurse practitioner. There's also in the DHA has a unit, a program that works with cardiac patients. And they have hired a nurse practitioner whose area of specialization is around cardiac disease. And she runs a regular program with the cardiac patients. Meanwhile, the health education coordinator, health promotion coordinator, I can't remember exactly what her job title was, but this just amazing young woman had developed this program out in, I think, the Guysborough-Canso area, where they had been able to find a small room. It wasn't a very large room, a small room. I think it might have been in a fire hall or a small community center of some kind. They had set up an exercise room with all of the equipment, you know, the treadmill and the stationary bike and all of these pieces of equipment, the stability balls and what have you. And on a regular basis, I don't know if it was a couple of days a week, a number of residents of that area and people who had been identified through the, probably I think a hypertension clinic of some kind, were coming on a regular basis. And, you know, they made this program a social event as well as a time for exercise. And they combined the exercise component, the social component, with some educational work as well, so that people were able to gain a better appreciation of what hypertension is and how it, you know, how it affects your body and what's going on when you have hypertension. And they were finding remarkable outcomes for the people who were participating in this program. And this program was being written up. The results of the program were being written up. And no doubt that information would come back into the DHA and into the department and what have you. And these programs are being developed around the province. And, you know, it's very much at the community level. It's very much targeting those high rates of chronic illness and disease, and we know where they are because of the, you know, because of the clinical information that we can get at the DHA level. And so, to, you know, in a nutshell, Mr. Chair, to the honourable member, in fact, this very much is the approach that we're taking in the Department of Health Promotion and Protection, as well as in the Department of Health. There is more and more work in the Department of Health now that is informed by the need to better manage chronic disease, and to have people who have already developed chronic diseases to be able to maintain their diseases better and arrest the development of those diseases and take better care if they have opportunities for exercise, better diet, better information, some support, because the group support as well can be a feature of whether people succeed or not in these programs. So I expect that we will see more of this kind of work around the province. We have increasingly, because of technology, we increasingly have the capacity to be able to look at the utilization patterns of healthcare services, and from that we can map, you know, where we see populations with particular kinds of illnesses, high incidence, high rates of particular kinds of diseases, and it will allow us then to program and plan and target into particular areas and communities, and that is occurring.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just quickly, I know the Deputy Minister is well aware of the power of having such a program in our schools, and I know in the community where I reside, Kingston, they have this after-school program. And I'm told by the people who are the leaders in this program that very often it is children who will not be in the hockey program or even maybe a low-cost soccer program who are participating. So I think it's a wonderful model. It's a wonderful opportunity because also children can discover some of the things that are providing fitness and well-being, but also that they enjoy and could become lifelong activities. So I'm wondering if you're looking at moving this to some of the other either counties, DHAs, or some manner of implementing across Nova Scotia? Because you did say it was a lower cost program, but the merits and benefits are extremely strong. So I'm just wondering, Minister, if you have any plans to migrate and move across the province.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Health, Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess I would say a couple of things. There's some elements of what we do at HPP that we standardize and promote throughout the province. Like, for example, the nutrition program in the schools. It's clear. It's a fact. Good kind of food and a particular kind of menu and certain kinds of foods are important no matter where you live. If you're in Cape North or if you're in, Argyle, it's all important. And you can standardize those kinds of things. But I think it's fair to say that our department uses a community development approach with respect to quite a few of the programs that we do. And what we mean by that, I think, is that we allow there to be a fair amount of variation that reflects the particular communities that have particular programs in. So the programs sort of come from the community. We support those programs, but they may be quite unique and not necessarily transferable to another community. Another community might have a very different idea about what would work for their communities. And so we allow that kind of diversity, and I think the outcome is you get this, you get a very mixed number of programs that all have their own sort of local logic and aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily all look the same because different communities. I think, the Valley program is very interesting. It uses the university at Acadia and the fact that there are students there and a strong, I think, recreational program at the university. And, that kind of relationship between the school board, the local, the municipalities in the Annapolis Valley are well known for their commitment to health. They were leaders around the smoke-free public places in many respects. And so they do have, I think, there's a uniqueness there that you may not necessarily reproduce in, let's say, not to single Bridgewater out in a negative way, but no university, let's say, in the Bridgewater area, for example. So you don't have those elements that seem to be a feature of what is unique in the Valley. At the same time, I have to say that I've had, since I've talked about this particular after-school program in the Valley, I've had at least one and maybe two members of this assembly approach me to whether or not we would be able to help another community start that kind of a program. So it's very obvious to me that that program has many attractive features for other areas. And, I'm sure they'd be happy to, use their experience to inform other communities that were interested in going this route. We don't necessarily have a plan to, use that as like a pilot and then go and start doing them all over the province. I think our approach is more, it's more organic than that. It sort of lets communities develop based on their own natural established relationships and patterns, and then we support and work with them. I think that's the approach.
The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pleased to hear how strongly the minister feels about an existing program that is having good results, and while it may not take the exact same structure and plan in other communities, at least that concept is there. Because I think, you know, and I'm sure by now the minister knows that she has to keep an eye on the short term with the health needs of Nova Scotia. But if we can make some fundamental changes for the long term that won't require as much infusion with disease rehabilitation and an emergency care, etc. We know that we can make quite a difference. One of the areas that I often noted, especially in my last 10 years at West Kings High School, we seem to always have 2 or 3 students from Scandinavian countries, in particular Sweden, Norway, Finland. And I remember asking some of them during perhaps the second half of the school year, you know, are you going to look at joining one of the clubs? You know, you've got friends now, you know the school, you know the community, you got great family support with the family you're staying with. And and it was so often their response was, well, you know, yeah, that's okay, but I have friends, but I go to the gym 5 days a week. And it just seemed part of their thinking and their way of being fit. And so I think this kind of program may have those kinds of impacts on young people, that they'll discover some of the things that they do like. And I know the Valley has been a leader in an area that the minister talked about in her opening remarks, which I can't quite put my finger on now, but certainly the collaboration among a whole lot of sectors. And I think of a model school and all the things that are going well in terms of promoting fitness. And I think the Deputy Minister is familiar with this lady who's had an enormous impact on the AVRSB system, but in particular for the last 10 or 12 years on the Somerset Elementary School, where a principal by the name of Heather Morse, who was a phys ed teacher, and she started about there probably 10 or 12 years ago, and the fruits of her labor are well seen, because a few years ago when Dalhousie did a study to take a look at fit children, fit schools, the Somerset School was in the top 5 in Nova Scotia, and they have been pioneers in nutrition, in fitness, and just a whole positive well-being for the school community from the time the child arrives until the end of day. And I'm just wondering if you use a kind of a model school concept in again changing the culture of fitness and well-being as a future part of our HPP.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Well, it's really an interesting question. I myself certainly don't have a lot of expertise with, you know, the various what the theories are about what is the best way to promote fitness, but I have to say I have a whole department full of people who we pay, and they know this stuff cold, know all of the research. One of the things that I am noticing, though, about what we're doing is we're doing a lot of different things, which suggests to me that maybe, again, it's kind of the diversity that is what will allow you to be successful. I was just reminded by staff about the after-school program at Paluga's Gym in the north end of Halifax, in the Gottingen Street area. You know, this is an area that has certainly a strong tradition in the arena of boxing. There are many successful African Nova Scotian boxers who've come out of that community, beginning with George Dixon quite a long time ago. And, you know, we've had Ricky Anderson, certainly, and Mr. Downey, David Downey, Buddy Day. We've had so many successful boxers. And not so long ago, we had Mr. McDonald, Mickey McDonald, opened Paluga's Gym on Gottingen Street. And it's a place where they have an after-school program for young people. And they're working with young people between the ages of 8 and 13. They have 2-hour, 5-day-a-week programs there that provide, you know, some physical activity for the young people with trainers, and they have other programs as well. They provide some healthy snacks, so it has a nutrition component. There's also a literacy component there as well, with computers at the gym and stuff. And so, again, that's the kind of thing that appeals in part of the constituency I represent, in that particular hood, as they would say. So it's, I think, again, it's not necessarily having one program. You know, I think about when I was a young person, how regimented, I guess, some of the physical activity was. And if you didn't fall into, you know, that regimentation, then there was nothing for you. And it didn't necessarily mean, I guess, that you had no interest in physical activity. It was just that, you know, the variety of choice that would appeal to people wasn't there. And I think that increasingly, maybe that's what we're learning. In Bible Hill, there's a program called the Cha-Ching Bike Club. And it's a project that was recently approved for female students at the Bible Hill Junior High. And a survey of female students revealed that the two biggest barriers that adolescent girls face is the feeling of intimidation when they participate in activities with their male counterparts, and as well, very few girls actually owned a mountain bike. So about 10 to 15% of junior high school students who are involved in interscholastic sports are girls. The rest are boys. So the participation of young women in sports in schools is very, very low, as the member probably knows. So this particular bike club, their aim is to get the participation of young junior high school girls up. And so the bike club has a girls-only bike club component. They're provided with equipment such as helmets and mountain bikes. And, you know, there again, it's a different approach. It's a different activity. It's not necessarily all of the same activities. And I understand that in the school curriculum now, there have been classes of yoga and dance, and some of these programs have been added in, and they're very appealing to young women in particular. And I think that ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to offer a broad variety of recreational opportunities that, you know, will capture the interest and the imagination of young people who would not necessarily find in maybe some of the traditional competitive kind of sports the comfort level that they need to participate. And so it seems to suggest, I think, that variety is indeed the spice of life, and that this might be the key that we need to getting people involved in changing the culture.
Thank you. The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know the minister there referred to how sometimes physical education programs and concepts of fitness have been very regimented. One of the long, lasting recreations in Nova Scotia has been street hockey. And we know in recent weeks it's been under attack a little bit. And so we know where the minister, stands of transportation on this. I think he's got a definite bias. But anyway, road hockey is one of those areas that obviously children of all ages and even in physical conditions can get out in a very unstructured way to participate. That being said, we all know that good recreation facilities are part of and really the very fabric of some of our communities. When we talk about the soccer pitch, think of the old Apple Bowl in Greenwood, for example. Again, the Deputy Minister, I think, may be quite familiar with. And, that was a fixture in the community. Arenas and ball fields and so forth. And we know the BFIT dollars didn't unfold in the manner in which, we all would have perhaps liked to have seen a 10-year plan. That being said, there will be an ongoing need in our communities for both renovating recreation facilities as well as meeting population growth areas. We do have 5 counties in Nova Scotia that continue to grow their population, and so when we get those areas, there will be needs. So I'm wondering how the minister, through HPP, will look at addressing the renovation of facilities and the building of new facilities in communities across Nova Scotia.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is a really important subject. And first of all, on the BFIT. The BFIT, as the member indicates, is quite a large, it was quite a large investment. It was intended to be an investment of $68 million that would last over a 10-year period until, I think, 2017. It's now fully committed. And what we have said is that the BFIT program is closed for applications, although there still were a number of outstanding applications at the point that the money was all committed. And that we are going to take a period of time out to assess where we are and what the, what the impact of all of this new recreational infrastructure development will mean for recreational opportunities across the province. Some of those BFIT programs, and just so the honourable member is aware, I tabled a copy earlier today of all of the BFIT projects that itemizes what they were, for how much, and I think it even had dates in about when they were to be completed. So some have already been completed, some have yet to be started. And so we need to take a period of time really to assess this program and to look at what it is that we have created and what we've addressed in terms of recreational needs around the province. And it will give us an opportunity, I think, to also reflect on where the gaps are, where the ongoing need is in the province, and as we do some planning for what the future might hold. In the meantime, however, we do have some other programs in the department that are there to help in the development of recreational facilities. And we don't do any operational funding to recreational facilities. The operation of facilities is really either the responsibility of local and municipal government, or it's the responsibility of, you know, a private operator, which might be the YMCA, for example. However, we do have programs to assist in the capital improvements of recreational facilities. So we have a program that's called the Recreation Facilities Development Program. That's a $2.4 million program in our budget this year. It allows our department to provide up to 1/3 of the total capital cost of a project, up to a maximum of $150,000. So, you know, it's to cover eligible projects that are anywhere between $20,000 to $450,000. And an organization is eligible to receive one grant in a 4-year period for the same project or facility. So every 4 years, conceivably, a facility could be eligible for money through this program. Routine maintenance and or projects to purchase equipment that is worn or carried by participants is not eligible, so the kind of routine maintenance. But, you know, certainly capital expansions and larger maintenance projects that aren't routine would certainly be eligible, I think. So this includes, this program covers rinks, it includes playgrounds, trails, parks, and the deadline has passed for this year. It was the first Monday in February, and I've been advised that we've had about 107, I think, applications, and staff will be in the process now of doing an evaluation of the applications. In addition to this, we have 2 other programs in the department. We have a small grants program that's called the Community Recreation Capital Grant Program. There's $300,000 in this year's budget for this program, and an eligible project is can get up to a maximum of $5,000. So it's really a small grants program. For smaller scale indoor and outdoor capital recreation projects that are under $20,000. So I was using the example of an outdoor rink that a community might want to build in the wintertime on their tennis, you know, if you have a tennis court, you have an ideal space to do an outdoor pad. And you just need, you know, these additional boards and the plastic and a water source and what have you. It also could include furnaces and roofs on a small scale. And it's a year-round program. There's no deadline. You don't have to get an application in by a certain time. You can submit it, you know, at any time. And again, you're only eligible for this grant once in every 4 years. So it's got this kind of 4-year cycle for organizations. And finally, there's also a planning assistance program. So there's a small grant program that assists community organizations and municipalities as well to obtain professional assistance in planning, designing, and researching a proposed or existing sport and physical recreation facility. So a small municipality that might want to build a skateboard park, for example, that doesn't have that planning expertise on their staff might qualify for a small grant up to $5,000 to secure that kind of expertise to help them plan a proposal. And so these are the programs that we currently have in the department to help people. And that line item in our budget, the planning assistance program, we have $120,000. So a maximum of $5,000 per applicant. We could get a fair number of $5,000 grants out the door to help people. You could plan a horseshoe field or lots of small projects for sure.
The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And just in the remaining, I think maybe roughly 10 minutes, hope to get maybe a couple of questions in. Just really two I'd like to ask about. One in relation to the testing of community water. And the other one, and this is where the minister may get a little bit lengthy, but I'm wondering how you see the role, as government has changed, in terms of perhaps taking on a stronger role with the gaming in relation to, I guess, the Gaming Commission in Nova Scotia, in terms of promoting responsible gaming in our province. It's an area sometimes that I think, while we have some initiatives, perhaps not as strong and not as comprehensive as what I hear from some of my constituents from time to time. So I'm wondering if this is an area that will be related to what the Minister of Finance has been talking about with the development of a new 5-year gaming strategy. Will HPP take on perhaps a stronger role? Because sometimes there seems to be some conflict with the Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation. I know they do some work in this area, but I still think it's an area that health promotion needs to be engaged in a much more aggressive manner.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm pleased to tell the honourable member that I have had an opportunity to meet with the Gaming Foundation, and as well, I know that staff at HPP have been part of the discussion around the new gaming strategy, and they've had an opportunity to meet with the minister responsible as well for the gaming authority. I can never remember what their name is, but so this is, I think, really important that we all kind of communicate together, and I'm very much looking forward to the new strategy and having an opportunity to hear from the public as well with respect to this strategy.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Possibly my last question here for this part of estimates. One of the communities in my riding has a chemical in the water. It hit the news media a little bit this week that at 14 Wing Greenwood, PFOS, which is the short version, has been I guess tested at higher than Health Canada regulations, and of course they have been very, very good in my connections with them. I've had contact initially with Dr. Strang, but then he passed it over to Dr. Gould who has informed me on a couple of occasions when I've asked questions. However, the surrounding community now is becoming more concerned, and they are not involved in testing. And I'm wondering how that community should perhaps best proceed to get some comfort and actual good data on whether PFAS could have migrated, moved through the water table into their well water systems. Most of the surrounding community are on wells, and so it is a growing concern. So if the Minister could comment.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I very much appreciate the honourable member bringing this issue and expressing, your interest in knowing what else can be done. I did have an opportunity to be briefed by my department a while ago when this first came to public attention, and I know the honourable member has been at a public meeting that was held in the area with residents to discuss the situation, and I must say I was a little surprised when I read the news accounts this week that people were, there was some concern expressed, I guess, that this wasn't being handled in an open manner, because I knew that there had been at least a public meeting with respect to this issue. If residents beyond the base in the community that the member represents are concerned, and I'm sure there will be concerns, then I think it would be best to bring those concerns to the Department of the Environment, because the Department of the Environment have been working very closely with DND and as well with the medical officer of health in that area. And I'm sure that not only have they been monitoring the situation at CFB Greenwood, but they will continue to monitor that situation, and I'm sure that they will be looking at the issue of water quality beyond the base to ensure that the drinking water is safe. And I know that the DND are providing bottled water to families and as well as the schools on the base, and they have issued advisories and are providing good information to people. And they are of the view that the contamination poses no health risk as long as residents of the area aren't consuming the drinking water. But I think any additional concerns, the Department of Environment are certainly the folks to go to.
Thank you. The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you very much, and the Minister was well versed on this issue. However, I can see perhaps in the next few days and weeks, once it gets out there, gets some public attention, and I know that the base has taken a very responsible approach, and as I said, Dr. Gould involved. But I think in those cases that surrounding the base, perhaps more attention will be needed, and I think we all want to handle it not in a panic mode, but in a balanced way to find out if there is potentially a long-term problem on the base, and also potentially in surrounding communities as well. So I just want to end off by thanking the Minister, the Deputy, and her staff for being here and providing very informative responses. Thank you.
Thank you. The honourable member's time has now expired. The Chair will now recognize the honourable member from Cape Breton North.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to say to the Minister, you've done an excellent job working through many hours of being in the chamber through many different topics, and hopefully none of this will come as too pressing as the hour moves on this evening. But I also want to welcome the Deputy and your senior staff with you this evening. Now I'm going to go down the way down to Cape Breton. They say up, but when you're from Cape Breton, you go up to Halifax and down to Cape Breton. So if we can go down to Cape Breton, and one of the areas that, in terms of moving forward, and I do note the Minister's discussion around recreational infrastructure, but I would say health and wellness infrastructure, because it's taken on a whole new dynamic from what it would be before. I know that part of, even with the Northside Community Pool reopening, it actually became part of the prescription of doctors was to prescribe swimming programs and aqua fitness as a better way to deal with remediating some health issues or maintaining a balance than it was to merely look to drugs and medication and other more obtrusive forms of correction matters. So with that, I'll go to the YMCA, because the YMCA, the Cape Breton Family YMCA, has done a great job within the community. As the Minister would know, they embarked upon a capital campaign. It's now $12.3 million. And admittedly, both the YMCA would say, as we would have in the government previous, that the project started at one point. We hit a point as well where construction costs spiked in the province, and it put a major strain on the capital budgets for the YMCA. So they legitimately came in with a good number. They've moved forward. And the challenge that they're running into is the level of investment from the federal government at this time, which would be $5 million, versus where they're hoping the province would be. And I know the province has provided some funding. The project's moved along. They've done a great job with the Empower program and capital campaign in the community. As the Minister would also know, that the honourable member for Cape Breton Nova and myself have both served on the Cape Breton Family YMCA board and have a great affinity towards the YMCA and want to see it move forward. So, Minister, I guess right now, aside from some of the other challenges, where the YMCA capital program is to finish the expansion project, the last remaining element right now is the pool. And the pool would have been, when it was put in a few decades ago now, it ended up being covered over and being used as the gym area because they didn't have that, and they ended up using the pool down in the basement. But they want to reopen that pool. It's $1 million to finish it. So the gap, without anything else, and really looking to the province, because they've additionally funded, is that $1 million. And given that if the pool doesn't proceed, it's a major component of the building, and it was a major portion of programming for the Y. So I'm wondering if the Minister has an update on that project as you see it at this point.
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the honourable member for the question. I have a great affinity for the Y, the YW and the YM. I think most people do. These organizations are fine. They're fine community-based organizations, and the situation with this particular project is that the department provided some funding to this project back in 2005, $1.5 million through a strategic initiative grant. However, by the time this project put together an application for the BFIT money, the BFIT money was pretty well exhausted. And the reality, Mr. Chair, is that I think when the BFIT money, when I came into the minister's office, the BFIT money, the $68 million was all committed with the exception of, I think $4 million had yet to be committed. $5 million had yet to be committed of the BFIT money. And we had I don't know, we had at least, I would say, 14. We had 14 unfunded proposals in front of us, including at least one other Y, as a matter of fact. And so it was very difficult to, the number of projects in front of us and the amount of money we had left just simply did not correspond. Choices were made, and the last $5 million has all been allocated. $2 million went to the 4-pad, the skating facility out in the Hammonds Plains area, which some people will remember, Mr. Chair, was a very high priority for HRM Council. In fact, I think it was their highest priority on their infrastructure request around infrastructure investment with the federal government. So at this stage, I will say to the honourable member what I have had to say to a number of other very worthy projects, is that the BFIT money has been fully committed, and what we have now in the department are a couple of other, albeit much smaller programs, but we do have the Recreational Facilities Development Program, which will provide up to $150,000 for a project, and I would encourage those other projects to consider making an application under the RFD program for what it is that we do have available. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cape Breton North.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And to the minister, one of the things I do recognize, and of course, you can never get into doing the exercise of what projects are more worthy or unworthy, but there is the timing issue with regards to the projects, where this project, which has significant investment that was there, and I was there the day that former Premier Ham went in to make that investment at the Cape Breton Family Y, and it was a great day at that time, and in fairness, the conditions, as I indicated before, had changed, and the financial undertakings that were committed had changed. However, in the Y, working through their numbers, and the question really is, because it's such a large project, because there's a large component, or the last significant component, which is getting the pool reactivated. When you look at it, it's $1 million, because it was, quite frankly, had been abandoned a number of years ago, but now it's been reconfigured, the new additions added on. And so my question is, appreciating there's other projects and they're worthy, but with this project underway, with a known and reported reason, with the community accelerating and increasing their fundraising efforts from this, with the Y being able to grow revenues, I and the member for Cape Breton Nova were on the board when we had to take it out of literally bankruptcy. So for that organization, and through the leadership and the great work of the staff for programming, to be able to take from their reserves, to get from bankruptcy almost into $1 million in reserves that they can contribute, into 1.8 million net that they could get from the wider community. And with that, and I know that Dr. Rex Dunn was key with the medical community that saw the value of what the Y would mean for the wider goodness and wellness of the community. So with that being said and done, and with the project being identified, and elections come and go, but it was very much an area where we would have moved, and other commitments being made, how do you deal with a project that had been available or had been underway, the conditions changing with appreciation? The federal government have added more money to the project. The community's added more money. The municipality contributed their $1.5 million for an already cash-strapped. Yet between the election and now, there's other projects. So how do you qualify that when you have projects underway versus starting new projects when there's one major one that can't get finished?
The Honourable Minister for Health Promotion and Protection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, as I said, there were a number of really valid proposals. This proposal wasn't the only project that was underway, that had those components that the member points to. There were other projects that weren't being built from scratch, shall we say, that were existing facilities that were looking for BFIT money. Frankly, I don't have any difficulty squaring it away. I would like to be able to fund all of the projects. However, I'm very realistic. I have to have the money in my budget to be able to fund all of the projects. The money in the budget was $68 million, and it was almost all allocated when I arrived in the department. And there were a number of proposals in front of us, and choices had to be made on where the last remaining dollars would go. We still have to announce, actually, a couple of the final choices that were made, and that will be coming fairly soon. And perhaps at that time it will be clearer what my thinking was. But I felt very compelled, I guess, to look at the proposals that were in front of us and to try to make the best choices that I could. And I'm prepared to, defend those choices. They weren't a lot of choices. I got to make very few choices on this program. I got to make $5 million worth of choices in a $68 million program. And I know it was difficult. It wasn't easy to make the choices that we had to make. And as I said, there were other projects that were underway that had strong community involvement and support, that had federal money on the table, that had municipal money on the table. I still hear from applicants who, in spite of the fact that they know BFIT has all been fully committed, they still think that somewhere in the Department of HPP there's a cushion or something with some money behind it where we can just magically find a few $1 million toward another recreational endeavor. But that's not going to happen. We have to live within our means in this province. We have to get the province back to balance. I guess one of the things about being Minister of Health as well as Minister of Health Promotion and Protection is that I see all of the asks on the health side as well as I see them on the HPP side. I know the magnitude of the pressures across both of these departments, and I know that I'm going to have to say no a fair amount. I've already said no a fair amount, and I don't particularly like it, but I know it has to be done, and it has to be done in the interests, of the province to make us stronger in the future. So this is where we are right now. There were some good projects left on the table, and I know that, and I would put this project among those projects that was a good project that was left at the table on the table. But there were 14 projects that were left on the table. And there were, difficult decisions that had to be made.
The honourable member for Cape Breton North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, Madam Minister, and I know we're going to take a break shortly, but with those 14 projects, do you have a sense of what the provincial portion of requested funding would be of the 14? So in other words, how much provincial funding of the 14 other projects was being requested?
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion and Protection.
Oh, thank you. It's really hard, it's kind of hard to quantify the projects that we weren't able to really advance in any way. But I think it's fair, Mr. Chair, to say that most of the projects that were brought forward were looking for a third of the overall cost of the project. There was a lot of communicating that was going on with the federal government, as well as the municipalities, as well as the province. So I think many organizations were looking for either a third federal, provincial, municipal money, or they were coming to the table with some money that they had fundraised as a third, perhaps, and they were looking for